Ryan Cousins, welcome to the Dare to Dream podcast, my man. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This has been a long time coming. Over the past 6 months or so, you have earned the highly coveted title of being one of my favorite clients that I've ever worked with.
Okay. Okay. Let's roll.
Yeah, what's it like? What's it like being one of
Yeah, I was going to say getting that prestigious award, that's what I dreamed about when I was growing up, right? So, no, man, it has been an absolute blast. And yeah, I'm really excited about this.
Let's dive straight into it
Yep.
because we have so many cool things to talk about.
Yep.
And one of the things I'm most excited about for this episode is that a lot of what we'll talk about are these ideas that we've co-created in coaching sessions.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about goal apathy. We'll talk about ripcords. We'll talk about all these different things and how they can help people. But I think that's the first question I want to ask you is, what are some of your favorite moments from working together for the past 6 months?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. And I think taking a step back, what's interesting is when we started working together, I would say there wasn't anything really wrong in my life. I was really excited about a lot of really cool things. But deep down, I felt like there was this sense that I could be doing more, right? I was really focused on my career. I was really, focused on my relationship with my wife, which is fantastic. But at the end of it, each day, I felt like there was just more that I could do in my life, and I needed a little bit more, and kind of why we started working together, right? And so as we embarked on this journey, it's been really cool. To your point about just learning so much and changing so much of who I am. But to your question around what are the best moments, I think the first one is been this realization that there's so many people like myself along the journey that have in their minds or have accomplished these goals that they thought were going to get them to this point of euphoria and they were going to solve it all, right? And it's just not the way it happens. It's just not the way it works. And that's an amazing realization, right? That you on paper may have everything that you want in life, but it's not going to translate to fulfillment because you may not be living the life that is meant for you or really doing the things that you truly want. It's just what society wants or the path that's set out in front of you. So that realization in itself is freeing. Then you can really start to figure out where you want to go, right? The idea of and we talk about this a lot, but this idea that when we get way too focused on things that really don't matter in our life, whether it be comparing yourself financially to someone who has a completely different life or career, in pulling the ripcord, completely taking a step back from that because it's not productive. It's not what you want to do. And in pulling the ripcord towards something that you're passionate, right? I love music. I love going and seeing live music. We talked about this. I recently was just comparing myself financially to someone else who, closed a big deal in my company. I'm like, damn, that could have been me. But that doesn't really matter, right? That doesn't really matter. And so what I did was say, hey, let's do something completely different. Let's go buy tickets to a concert with my brothers and do something that I really love and really am passionate about, right?
Yes.
Those two things would probably stick out to me as two of my favorite.
And it's so good because you mentioned something that is really important and that you weren't broken. There was nothing wrong with you. When we started working together, you were crushing it on pretty much all levels. And I think that's a common misconception that I get a lot with people looking for coaching is they think that coaching is about fixing things. It's about getting help, yes, but you can come into coaching when you're very successful. It's about getting the things that are missing. And I think that's why we've had so much fun together and we've aligned on so much is because the money, the job title, the things on paper aren't going to fill that hole inside of you that is looking for growth, for fulfillment, for all of these things that are really hard to measure, but are really important at the end of the day.
Yeah. Looking back at the time, I came to you with a lot of energy. I think I was more motivated than ever to make that change. So I think that's to your point, such a common misconception that you have to feel lost. And, in a way I did, but it was that such a profound energy that I needed to do something that was really fulfilling that motivated us, right? And to get on the right direction. It's been a lot of work to get where we are here. And there's a lot of work in front, but yeah, I agree 100%.
And going back to that idea of the ripcord, which is so good because when you say ripcord, what I envision is a scene in Transformers. I just watched it recently. It might have been Transformers 2. Basically, they're on a cargo plane and they're trying to get rid of one of the generals who's about all this stuff. And one of the guys pulls the general's ripcord as he's standing near the back of the plane and it's open and he just gets sucked out. So it's an intentional act you can take when, like you said, you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're feeling scared, you're feeling like you're showing up as someone you don't want to be, what is the ripcord you can pull? What is the one little action you can take to suddenly shift your energy? And for you, that one of the ripcords we've been working on is the shift from fear and comparison
Yep.
and lack into a playfully bold action
Yeah.
that excites you and just completely shifts your energy immediately.
Yeah, I think that analogy is spot on. And what I think about and visualize when I do it is sitting at my desk at my house and literally pulling something like a parachute that brings me out of my house and doing something else. And that's what happens. And that's how I operate. It's something as simple as, spending too much time on my computer, just grinding on it and focusing on the things that really don't matter. And then being like, wait, I need to stop. I need to take a step outside. I'm going to go get with my wife, my dog, and we're going to go for a walk and just appreciate what we have, right? Something as simple as that, or to your point, where we've really started to go is just playfully bold as, maybe I'm just going to go call one of my friends and we're going to go, schedule something that we've never done before. Maybe we're going to go coffee somewhere new. So something super simple, but so powerful, and then stopping or starting there and graduating, just getting bigger and bigger, right? We're getting points to, my younger brother and I, this led to, one of the ripcords led to my younger brother and I planning a trip to South America to go see the Amazon and go hike Machu Picchu. Like, that's the big bold one, but it was something that I've always wanted to do. That's part of like what I want my story to be about, are these big bold things that I'm really passionate about. Again, that would have not happened. The previous Ryan would have sat there and stewed and tried to solve this insolvable problem. And instead it's shifting the focus on things that I really want to do. So
That hits so hard. I think so many of us are constantly trying to solve these unsolvable
yeah.
problems, myself included, and just spinning the wheels, just bashing your head against the wall when really the answer might be go out and take a walk,
Yeah.
go meet up with a friend, go
Yeah.
plan a trip with someone special who's
Yeah.
meaningful in your life.
Yeah. And there's a lot of those insolvable problems. We talked about this a lot through our time, where there's always another email the next day. There's always, working in sales, there's always more money to be made next quarter. There's always there's a bigger job promotion. There's an infinite amount. And if that's all you focus on, the fulfillment's just not going to be there, right? And it is fleeting, but then you realize there's more and more and more, and you may not even want it. And that's the funny part. So
And part of the reason I'm so excited for this conversation is because I've gotten to know you over the past 6
Yep.
months. I know where you are and where you're going, and you are at this awakening beginning of this epic hero's journey, and I'm so excited to see it. But for people listening who haven't had the chance to get to know you yet, tell us a little bit about the sales journey and the past 5 years. Like, what does that look like? And then we can shift more into where you're going.
yeah, I think so. Starting back probably in 2020, probably for a lot of individuals, we went to the same college, Cal Poly, and I
Go
took it.
Mustangs.
Yeah, go Mustangs, let's go. And we, I started like a lot of my colleagues working in technology, and for the past decade or so, I've spent time there as well. But really, in 2020 was this time where I'd been working for a while, had accomplished a lot, but I noticed that there was really this profound sense of feeling lost, and that was probably a time where I hit a low point in just mental health, physical health, being aligned truly to who I was, being lost, and that ignited this journey and really taking a step back, figuring out who I want to become, what I really care about, what do I want to do with my life. By no means am I finished, but it's given me a lot more clarity on that type, and so I spent a lot more time, not focusing on the news, focusing on breath work, on things that I know that I've fallen in love with, on more time in the gym, on cutting out alcohol, like really embracing this idea of health, right? But I think is a whole conversation we could have, but truly being healthy, being sound body, sound mind. And so that's been kind of the foundational work. Now, that was probably the last couple of years. It's taken a long time to get. And then recently, let's say 6 months ago, I've had goals and I've had aspirations, and I've accomplished a lot of those. And it was that point where I was really happy, really excited. But I felt like there was a large part of me that wasn't living how I wanted to, or as fulfilled as I wanted to. And that was what led us to start working together. And For some people, it may feel like, and it felt like for me, like I was moving forward in a cave. I knew where I was somewhat going. I could see ahead of me, but I felt like it was trapped in this, almost narrow tunnel vision when I just needed to find a way out. It wasn't necessarily bad by any means, but I just wanted to find this area of opportunity and take a step outside where I felt like I needed to your point, start the hero's journey and actually get towards a life that I'm really excited, really want to keep moving forward with.
Would you say that reaching out to me initially came from a place of courage? Did it come from a place of dissatisfaction with the status quo? Like, what was that actual catalyst to get you to reach out and book a discovery call? Because I think there's a lot of people who feel similarly to what you were feeling, but they don't take that first step.
Yeah, it was two things. It was this idea that you talk a lot about being bold. And you share this in our coaching sessions, in a lot of what you post wherever and discuss on the podcast. This idea of being bold. And I remember reading that and saying, yeah, why shouldn't I just reach out to him and at least have a conversation? To the other question, courage. It was, like I said, I I did a lot of work to get in a fantastic place in my life, and I was really excited where I was, and I showed up probably call one being so juiced, so excited, really alive and ready to roll. Like, because I knew I didn't know where I wanted to go yet, but I know I wanted to move forward, right? And that was where it was. So, like you said, it was probably that place of courage and just ready to take the first of many bold actions.
And it makes so much sense hearing that why we've been so successful together, because that's the perfect person for coaching. Is you don't need to know where you want to go. That's what coaching is for.
Yeah.
We go deep, we excavate the directions, the answers, the purpose that's hidden, dormant, lying within.
Mhm.
All you need to know is that you're ready to go, that you're ready to show up and do the work and have the energy. And that's why, yeah, when we have calls, I just leave so excited and fired up. And there's a couple different ways we can take this, but one thing that I think that is important to point out is that you were crushing it before coaching and you're crushing it now. And I want to talk about the distinctions and the differences, but how did you manage to be so successful in tech sales? Because when you came to me, you were like, I've figured this part out. I'm doing really well. I've created systems and time and space for me to focus on things outside of work. How did you go about creating those systems? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it took me a long time, but it really came down to a couple of leaders that I worked really closely with have strong opinions on a lot of the work that we do uh, outside of sales, but in sales just doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle. It's noise. It really, some people refer to them as revenue or non-revenue generating activities. And a mentor of mine previously had said, cut out the noise, cut out the bullshit. And that was really just the catalyst and the mentality that I wanted to have, because I think it was probably, my 30th birthday. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting older, right? Like I can't waste time doing things that I don't want, that don't move the needle in the direction that I want, right? And that was, to your point, the real reason I started to figure out, okay, where in my career can I start to really compartmentalize, really do the most efficient work, really move the needle on things? Like, what is actually going to make a difference? And it cut out a lot. And it's hard to do because I think we have this idea that answering emails and accomplishing tasks feels productive, which means like you're moving the needle, right? But it may not be as productive, right? Busy does not equal productive, right? One of my, like a longtime coach, not coach, excuse me, sales leader has told me that a lot, right? Busy does not equal productive. So how could I actually be productive and make strides? So that helped me honestly a lot to get to a point where I felt like I had the time to now invest into other parts of my life, right? Because I think for a lot of people, the career can be all consuming. And I would just say to those, there is always a more efficient, productive way to work. It may be hard to figure that out, but for you, it is out there, right?
And it makes me think of one of my favorite concepts that have come out of our sessions, which is this idea of goal apathy,
Yeah.
where that is probably the biggest red flag leading indicator that you need to slow down and take a look at what's going on in your life. Because goal apathy is when you hit the big goal, you make the amount of money, you get the job title that you've been striving for so long. And yes, you feel excited, but the excitement lasts 10 minutes, 10 days. And then you go back to, oh man, now I'm in this state of pre-goal failure. I have set a new big goal and I haven't hit it yet. And you're just kind of like back to the rat race on that hamster wheel. And if you're starting to feel that, right,
Wow.
talk to someone.
Yeah, that looking back to 5 years ago now, that was probably the signal that I should have realized, and it was the signal that I realized, but really that point of goal apathy, because I remember explicitly, to your point, doing everything, crushing everything in the career stage of my life, but soon after, it felt like I was back to square one. It felt like I had not moved the needle whatsoever, even though numbers in the bank account may have gone up, even though more tenure, more uh, accomplishments at your career. It just felt like nothing was moving in the right direction. And so I think, again, that shift of perspective and shift on how you we talked about this a lot, like how you celebrate that. Like that was something I wasn't doing at all. I was kind of just saying, like, great, I did what I needed to do and on to the next one. And you can get so trapped in that, so trapped in that. And so anything, and that's one thing I've incorporated a lot. And we've talked about, like, how do you celebrate even the smallest things, especially in careers that can be challenging? How do you celebrate the wins, no matter big or small, is such an important part into feeling, feeling successful, feeling like you're actually doing the right thing to you, right? Um, it's hard, right? It's really hard in high stakes careers where you're, whether it be finance or technology or consulting or any of these things, it's hard. So you really have to make an effort to do so.
And as you've started to celebrate the wins, as you've started to look outside of your traditional job for purpose and fulfillment and a lot of the work we've done, what has come alive in you?
This sense of playfulness, it's gotten back to the parts of me that I remember that I love so much. I always love spending time outside. My wife and I got a golden retriever puppy not 6 months ago, so that's been amazing. But going back to, like, what I grew up being passionate about, I love music. I picked up guitar in 2021, and that has been something that when I go back to that, it makes me feel alive. And even things that we talked about this, I'm a huge nerd. I love fantasy novels. I love, like, Pokemon. I love video games. That's just been a part of me forever. And I almost shun that side of me, being like, okay, you're 32, man. Get away from that stuff. Like, you don't need to be doing that. But in the flip side, the part that's making me the most happy are those parts, like going after that, embracing it, going even deeper. That's been so fun to reignite, and has just been, again, another part that's felt way more fulfilling to focus on. So again, I've been able to almost then take the success that I've had in my career and start to leverage that for other parts of my life, and really start to ignite those fires in other parts of my life that I've been so excited about.
And it's so powerful when you are showing up being alive. When you're showing up with that energy, other people can feel it and they can notice. And that's why from day one we've gotten along so well, is because we're both pretty alive and have a lot of energy. And I heard this quote the other day by this guy named Erwin McManus. And he said that every human being is desperately trying to figure out how to be alive. There's so many of us that are going through
Yeah.
days and weeks and years and decades on autopilot, just doing the tasks to pay the bills, to cover the expenses.
Yeah.
This idea of slowing down and almost reconnecting to what makes you come alive is so important, because on this path to success, we often shun and hide and cover up parts of ourselves that are super important to who we are in our being. And it's this backwards path of, we want to become successful so that we can eventually show up as ourselves. And what if you just show up as yourselves on the way to being successful?
Yeah. That's really powerful. We talked about this a lot. We get older and we get more serious. And the more serious I got, the less I tend to enjoy things. And going back to, how do we incorporate this idea of being playful in our lives, whether it be even in a career goal, even in a personal goal, the just being playful in everything, holding on to things a little bit more lightly. When I started to think about things that way, it was when it was like a complete paradigm shift. Everything came alive. And I've started to think about how can I embrace that, to your point about everyone wanting to feel alive. I would say think one of the first things we did was think about what like for all the way from when I was a kid to now. What did I love to do when I was a kid? What stuck with me? What didn't stuck with me? What was I truly passionate about? Because if you take the time to really reflect on it, you will find what you're truly passionate about. And so how do you incorporate that in your life today? And that's been a huge success in just bringing energy and the fire back into what I want to really accomplish and do with my life.
And we've talked a lot about boldness. Obviously, I talk about bold action across all areas of my life right now. And I think you are nailing it in that bold and playful are so good together. If you can take playfully outrageous, bold action, it feels like the secret sauce, the winning formula, because facing your fears can be scary, but if you're able to make facing your fears fun and silly and outrageous and you laugh at yourself, it seems like all of the consequences and the heaviness just evaporates.
Yeah, I think that's especially true because when you take those bold, playful actions, we talked about this, you're going to fail. You're going to run into a place where you take this bold action and it may not get you to where you thought you were going to go, or you may fail and need to do it again. But a byproduct of that fun, playful attitude is when you take that bold action, the universe we talked about has this weird way of the byproduct of that bold action making something accomplish, right? Whether that be you learning or growing, or someone, you asking something for someone, but they turn you in a different direction, right? If you have a less serious attitude about that, the how you interact with the world, it's a reflection of that, but you feel so much better if instead of this serious, oh my God, this decision's it in my life, this one decision's it, that's not ever it. And if you take that light attitude, it does pay dividends.
And it completely changes other people's perception of
Yep.
you. If you're willing to take bold action, if you're willing to be playful about it, even if you don't get the thing you were asking for, you immediately get slotted into this different category of human
Yeah.
who's bold, who's willing to ask for things, who's confident, who, if they don't get their way, doesn't scream and throw a tantrum. So it changes your life in so many ways. And I just can't recommend it enough to people listening.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, you show up differently in the world. That is such a byproduct I didn't foresee. People, I wouldn't say take you less seriously, but you represent yourself in a different way. It's lighter, it's more fun. I think when we often have this habit of just trying to take ourselves way too seriously as we get older, and by doing so, again, the world has this really cool way of giving back to you. May not be the way that you thought, but in the way that you need. And again, for people who may think, oh, I work in this very serious job and I can't do that. I would challenge you on that and say there is ways to incorporate that, and you'd be surprised at how much you stick out against the crowd, right? How unique that is to have that fun, playful attitude in your life. So
It's so cool you just said that because I was at Toastmasters this morning and one of the women who's in this group, she's what is the name of it? She reconstructs the biomechanics of car accidents.
hmm,
She's an engineer and like
okay.
her job is to testify in court as to whether this is feasible from a physics perspective or not. And so she gets cross-examined by her attorney and then also the opposing counsel. And so she talks about a lot how she has to like really practice her speaking and know her stuff because she's getting kind of attacked on both sides from both attorneys. And then there's the, I don't know, court reporter, I don't know what it's called, who's literally capturing everything she says and in the deposition. And she can only say in trial what she said in the deposition. And I'm sharing all of this because today she's like, one of the first things I do is I try and make the attorneys laugh. And it's mostly for me. Like I try and make them laugh so that I have a moment to calm down and settle myself. And I think, and again, I'm viewing the world through this one lens right now, but I would be it's hard to find a part of life that isn't improved with playfulness. Maybe a funeral, maybe something like that,
Yeah.
but to me, when I think of playfulness and bold action and holding things lightly, I think of all of the Zen masters who reached the highest level of enlightenment and achievement and all these things, and then just didn't care. Like, they just made jokes about it.
Yeah. I mean, this comes back to one of my favorite books you recommended was 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman. And that one is a amazing look on your mortality. And that was one of the reminder of we're all going to die one day. We're all, there is an end to this journey, which is both very scary, but freeing in the sense that, of course, our actions have consequences, but having that playful attitude, we got one life to live. So why not be a little bit bold? Why not be a little bit more fun and take yourself outside of the crowd and embrace that mentality? Because you're an absolute example of this. When you start doing that, results happen. Life has, again, I keep saying, has this way of unfolding before you. And I say that just because I've experienced it in the last 6 months. It just does. It's weird, but it is, again, a byproduct of the action you take.
The universe rewards bold action, baby.
It does. It does. I wonder where I heard that.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about where you were and where we're slightly getting into where you're going, but I think an important stop on the journey and this conversation is to talk about this concept of the lonely chapter, which we both heard from Chris Williamson, who runs the Modern Wisdom podcast. We love the guy. What is the lonely chapter, and how has it shown up as you've intentionally started to spend your time in different ways?
Yeah, it's one of the most difficult realizations of the work that we've done together. In that when I started to shift my identity from where I was to where I was going to where I am now, along that path, you start to realize that you may not have the same interests that you once did. You may not be connecting with the same people that you once did. The work that you may have to do is hard, and it's on you to do that work. And you feel like you are the only person on this journey. And it's lonely. It's hard. It's one of the things I didn't expect. And I've shown up to conversations we've had before, and it's been hard. I've been down because you feel like you're losing a part of you, and in a sense you are. You may feel like you're losing relationships, and sometimes you may. It's like the cave that you have to go through to get to the campfire we talked about. And you start to realize in that lonely chapter, that is the point of growing. That is the point of the realization that you're changing. And that is freeing, scary, but also something you have to walk through, right? You have to go through there to get to the other side. And now that I'm through it, I'm so thankful that I experienced it, because people will, right? I think that's another common misconception, in that when you embark on a journey like this, you're going to be the same person that you were when you start, and you're going to be that you're still Ryan. But a lot of what I want out of life, the interests, the relationships, the type of relationships I want to have are completely different 6 months ago. And now that I'm out of the lonely chapter, I've realized it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. None of my relationships suffered. If anything, they're stronger, because it's given me clarity in what I want to do. It's making me bolder in the friends that I want in my life, and the people that I want in my life, and how I speak with them, how I act with them, how vulnerable I am, how transparent I am. And that's been cool. But when you're in that, it is hard. It is really hard. And it's something not many people talk about. And it could be, mine was a personal journey and kind of self-discovery around the goals that I wanted to accomplish in life, what I wanted to do with my life. Some people, it may be shifting careers. Some people, it may be something completely different, or moving cities, something radically different. But when you take these bold actions, a byproduct of them is going to be big, bold change in your life. Some in the moment feels really hard.
Yeah. And to just tie a bow on the lonely chapter, it's this idea where you're growing, and as you're growing, you might be outgrowing friendships or relationships, or you don't like to do certain things anymore that you used to. Maybe going out and getting 12 pints with the boys isn't quite as fulfilling and rewarding as it used to be. And you have grown sufficiently enough that you don't see eye to eye with the old place you were in, but you haven't sufficiently developed and grown into that new version of yourself that's going to have this new tribe, these new interests. And it's called the lonely chapter because it's this period of introspection where you're trying to figure out where the hell you're going and who you want to become. And I think it was so cool to watch on my end is that we set these goals at the beginning of our coaching, and then we did all of this work around identity. Step number one of my process is to find your new identity. And as you shifted and figured out who you wanted to become, the goals shifted with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I look at that time and such a different person back then, but I akin it to this. It was almost like you were swimming in this big school of fish and you've known that school for a long time, and then you swim off and you're in this humongous big ocean and you don't know where you're going, but you know you're going in the right direction. And you start to see other fish that may be your school and that might be the right one. And then you start to, as you figure this out, the lonely, as you're embarking on this journey, there are other people that join with you, and then there's more and more fish. And then you realize you're swimming this really cool new school that is that is what you wanted. And you're like, this is it, right? And not to say that there's anything wrong with the old, and I think it reframes a lot of your old relationships in a more positive way, for sure.
Definitely. And I love that idea of finding your new fish squad,
Yep.
squad who dis.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are a fellow lover of human connection, and
Yeah.
you've talked a lot about genuine human connection. And an idea that's come up recently that I'm just absolutely in love with, that I want to hear more about, is this idea that intentionally increasing friction in your life and doing more work so that you can go spend time with people in person. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it stemmed from this idea of, in my career, friction creates reality. If it's too easy, that means it's not going the way you want it to, right? When you're selling something, you need to have friction. You need to hear no. And I incorporated this in the sense that as I'm getting older, people have more responsibilities. My friends have a lot going on. We're going, to weddings and kids and everything. And the one constant I've realized in my life, especially in 2025, that has made such a profound difference is when I get with people in person. Magic happens, sparks fly. When we get together, when my wife and I go to do something, when my friends and I get together, whenever we meet up with like-minded people, that is truly what moves the needle on everything in my life, but how I feel, how fulfilled I am. And we have this default of taking the easy route, as people we always do. And that can mean when you're trying to catch up with someone, talking on the phone, or catching up really quickly, or going to a bar and meeting up. And that's the easy route. And what I've tried to do is say, hey, we're not going to do that. Let's go for a hike for the next 2 hours and really challenge them on this idea of getting together in person. Of course, it's fun to connect over a video game or a phone call, and I continuously do that. But challenging yourself and colleagues, both professional and personal, to make the effort to get in person, because that again is when one, selfishly, I feel most alive. But I know the byproduct of that is when everyone feels most alive. That's when you get to connect, so you can catch up on everything. That's when you get to really hear about how someone's doing. And so just this idea of genuine human connection, how can I incorporate that to every single part of my life, right? What is the constant thread that I can weave across every single action that I have? Can it be done in person? If so, that's the default. That should be the default. And right, I don't know if it's post-COVID or whatnot. I think we have this sense of laziness. But again, I think it's just as we get older, things get more complicated. But yeah, how can I just make that the default, right? Being in person with someone. And it's hard. It is hard. It takes a lot of work and effort. But that makes a humongous difference, and has made a humongous difference in the last couple weeks in present moment.
And it's such a powerful idea because another Chris Williamson podcast that we talked about, shout out to the GOAT.
Yep.
We talked about how connection and competency are kind of two different sides of a spectrum, and that on one side we have competence and autonomy, and we're able to do things on our own and we can get shit done.
Yeah.
And then on the other side is like the human connection. You're slowing down, you're connecting with people. And Chris Williamson had this guest on, I'm forgetting his name, William Von
Yeah.
Something, who was saying that it's actually people actually view highly competent people as less warm and welcoming
Yeah.
and less connected because they're off in their own world, they're getting things done. And connection is inefficient a lot of the times. You have to go meet up with someone, you have to drive there, you get coffee, it takes time. It's less back to back to back than if you just have 6 Zoom calls scheduled,
Yeah.
and it really slows you down. But one of the most fascinating things from that researcher he was interviewing is that those inopportune moments that slow you down, that added friction is actually a huge component of connection and happiness. It is in those moments where things are more inconvenient in the short term that actually bring meaning and fulfillment in the long term. And he talked about how rich people are often
Yeah.
way less engaged in their communities. Maybe they live behind a big gate, they have more land. They might not know their neighbors at all, versus poorer people are usually closer together. They know their neighbors. If their lawnmower breaks, they can't just go out and buy a new one. They have to go ask
Yep.
down the street to borrow one. They're knocking on a door asking for sugar. And it's those little micro moments of connection that really build that sense of belonging that I think so many successful people are missing. And I think that might be part of, I mean, I have so many theories on this, but
Yeah.
that's part of that empty feeling that comes when you are highly successful, but you feel like something's missing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea and I resonate with it because times in my life where I've felt that are the days where I get sucked into the nonstop Zoom calls and accomplishing what I need to accomplish. And at the end of the day, in one aspect, you are rewarded for it. Highly competent people are rewarded for it, whether it be societal, whether it be financial. You get those rewards at the end of the day. But to your point, the days where I've interrupted the pattern and taken the 2 hours or hour and a half lunch to go drive and meet someone that I haven't met in a long time is the game changer. I that is when you start to one feel more connected to your community, to others, but also to the work itself, right? Ironically, I think of all the work we've done over the 6 months, and I've gotten more efficient with how I've had my career, and I've never been more successful, and I've never had much more fulfillment from what I do, which is the crazy part of it, right? I wouldn't have not guessed that to be a byproduct. But you're right. I think to one of my colleagues too, who one of my friends of mine who is a absolute killer. But there are days when he is crushing it, but he's working to from 7 to 7, accomplishing incredible amounts. And the byproduct of that is sometimes not feeling as connected. I know that, and that's just from speaking to him. Um, so yeah, again, this idea of how can you constantly thread connection throughout your everything, more or less, right? Because I think it's a big piece. It's what one of the reasons I started working with you as well was I felt like I didn't have that community. I have friends that I'm really blessed about. I have a loving family, and my loving wife, but I felt like there was a community of people that I wanted around me as I embarked on this journey, as I shifted my identity and priorities, and human connection was the only way to get there.
Yeah, it's that group of people who have shared goals,
Yep.
shared interests. And even if it's not actually a shared interest, but it's just a love of growth and challenging yourself and getting out of your comfort zone, there's so much benefit in getting around people like that and spending time with them person to person. So I love that. I love this idea of human connection and intentionally increasing
Yeah.
friction and what is the word I'm looking for? It's just inconvenient to get out there and go drive, like you said, to meet someone, but it pays big dividends. So I love that. One place I want to go before we come to you sharing your 4 pillars and what's coming next for you and all of that is that you've been a huge help for me in unlocking this piece that I've been talking about for way too long and not taking action on, which is helping people figure out what are the things they truly want to do in their life, what are their authentic dreams, and not just these bucket list items that they put on their list because they're sexy or it's what everyone else is doing. And so we did an exercise where you went deep into what is the story you want to tell with your life? And then what are like 10 to 15, I can't remember how many we had, things that you want to do before you die that are super important and why. And then we're going to do some of them together.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that list and that process, and then we'll share when we're going scuba diving.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. One of the early concepts you introduced was and you talk a lot about, was the idea of the story worth telling, and I love it. I resonated resonated a lot with me. When I started to think about that, I started to think about, and it's a hard visualization to look at, as you sit and reflect on the end of your life and you're 85, 90 years old, if we're so lucky, what do you want to look back on, what you've accomplished, what you've done, the story that you told? And I reflect a lot about the values that I wanted to live, and that was what drove a lot of that, whether my family, adventure, traveling, sense of connection, purpose really stood out to me. And that was where I started, right? To start to figure out, what is it? What did I really want to do? If I could look back and say, over X amount of time period, I'm challenging myself. I'm trying to do them all by I'm 35, right? And then my goal is, if I can do that by 35, what can I do by I'm 40, right? And really go big and bold. And that's what it came down to, aligning to your values, and that in itself is work to get to that point where you know what you value. And it's been really cool, one, planning them, living them. Life just seems much more bright when you have these constant streams of what to look forward to, and knowing that the things that you've always wanted to do and said, someday I'm going to take this trip. Well, someday I'm just going to come suddenly, but it's also planned. You also know that I'm like, I've an animal lover, but I've always wanted to go to South America and go to Amazon. And knowing that I have that plan is such an amazing feeling. Uh, knowing that I'm going to see bands that I've always wanted to see with my wife or my brothers, it's such an amazing feeling. Like, things that I've always wanted to do, and having that stream constantly in your life, and in reflecting on that, has been ridiculously powerful. So powerful. It's another example of a ripcord. Being able, if you get too much in your life, like, okay, well, if you want to do something really bold, like, take the ripcord and go plan one of those things. Go, book the flight right now. Do something that you have to commit for the future, so that you're going to do it, right? Whether that be a non-refundable, whatever it may be, to make that happen. That has been an amazing part. And I think it sounds complicated, but it's simple once you get down to it. It really is just a byproduct of bold action. And then you're going out and you're living your life. It's really amazing once you start to continuously bridge it in, and feels incredible. Yeah.
And the anticipation of
Yeah.
a trip
Yeah.
or the event or the experience is more than half of the fun and the reward. There's a lot of research out there showing that we actually we get more dopamine from the anticipation than the actual event sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is funny, kind of sad, kind of being human. But
Yeah.
if you can set up your life to leverage that in a way that's helpful,
Yeah.
it can be a game changer. And so we're going to go scuba diving together.
Yes.
And let's explain why. So we're going to get scuba certified because one of the things on your list to do before you turn 35 is to scuba dive the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah. My wife and I have always wanted to go to Australia. We have not been to, we've been very blessed. We've seen a lot of the world. Australia, and that part of the world, is one that we haven't. Again, animal lover, but Australia will be a trip that we will be taking, and scuba diving the Great Barrier Reef and seeing that part of the country has been, again, just a dream of mine. One that, we're going to make a reality pretty soon. But this is the micro bold action before the big one, right? Doing something together, which is going to be awesome.
And that's where I see a lot of people get stuck, is they have this big 10-year, 20-year, this huge thing that they want to do. And one, they are not the person who's ready for that. They haven't become that person. They haven't worked on themselves in that way. But two, it's like so hard to take action when there's not a clear roadmap and little steps. So we call it the bite-sized bold actions.
Yeah.
How can we take scuba diving the Great Barrier Reef? How can we make that smaller? How can we bring that into today and make it more feasible? And so us going and getting scuba certified in San Diego is great. And then I can't wait if it's going to be me, you, and your wife on this trip. No, I'm just
Yeah, exactly.
I won't be going on that one.
Uh,
We'll be getting scuba certified together. And you've helped me solidify this idea that coaching is so powerful, whether it's via Zoom, whether it's in person like we had today before this. And those conversations can be transformative and life-changing, but there's also transformational experiences. I think that you can get so much from just being in a space with someone as you try something scary, uncomfortable, interesting, new. And I haven't done this yet, but it's a line I've been saying where you can get so much out of a powerful coaching question, but sometimes people just need you to hold their hand as you jump out of a plane together.
Yeah.
Because I've had this idea of going skydiving
Yeah.
with clients as like part of the beginning, because we're taking a metaphorical leap of faith working together. What if we go and take a literal leap of faith?
Yeah.
So thank you for all of the work we've done together.
Yeah.
You've helped me so much as a coach, just figure out what works, what resonates, how to take a lot of these ideas that I've had and actually take my own medicine and start
Yeah.
taking bold action on them and being like, all right, let's go. Like, let's get this on the calendar.
Yeah. The bite-sized bold actions one that is like the less scary version of it. Because I think, again, a lot of people are terrified. You know, they're like, oh, I'm accomplishing what I want to do in my life. That's exciting and terrifying. But for me, you know, I'll give two examples. I've found breath work to be one of the most amazing, powerful tools. And I've have an app for it, but that's the easy way of doing it. Right. And so I want to go on a 3-day breath work retreat coming up. Well, that's kind of scary. I'm transparently scared about that. Like I don't know anybody. It's going to be different. It's a different type of person than we used to interacting with. So instead, the bite-sized bold one is, well, I can go and find a breathwork, an all-day retreat in San Diego, or I can go take a class with some other folks in San Diego. And that's a step in the right direction that is equally uncomfortable, but is a lot more palatable. You've always wanted to go do a 3-day music festival if you've never gone to, well, go see a rock band or go see who you want to locally and get yourself in the right direction. You know, taking what you love and what you want to do week in and week out, taking little bite-sized bold action, just moving in that direction, the level of comfort, you'll feel so much better and you'll realize that there's nothing to be scared about. And the energy you get is intoxicating, right? Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because there's two really important things to say on this. The first is that happiness is making progress toward a goal.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily achieving it, as we talked about earlier. So if you can have these bite-sized bold actions that are slowly moving you towards that big dream experience, you just get to lengthen the amount of time when you're positively progressing toward it. It's just more fun. So that's amazing. I'm glad you brought that up. And then, oh my gosh, you helped us to create this idea of habits, challenges, dream experiences. So during step 1, I take you through this thing called a dream print, which is where you figure out who you want to become in 8 comprehensive areas of your life. I call them the 8 F's because we love alliteration. So there's fitness, finances, future self, fulfillment, friends, faith, family, freedom. And once you figure out who you want to become in all of these areas, you then just ask yourself, okay, if I want to become this version of Ryan or this version of Gregory, what's one habit I can start doing to become that person, to start taking that vote?
Yeah.
And once you have those habits in place, you implement them, you get comfortable with them. And then the next step is, how can we turn this into a challenge experience? So let's go back to breath work. The habit was daily breath work practice, and the habit is easy to figure out. The dream experience, which is this big, bold, badass breathwork retreat, is easy to figure out. But bridging the gap was really an unlock for us together, which is, okay, how can we do the challenge experience, which is all day experience, or it's going to a class? How can you, like you said, break it down into a bite-sized bold action that you can really feel, and you almost acclimate your nervous system to it as you're approaching the thing. So by the time you're going on the 3-day, 10-day, 3-month breathwork set retreat, you're going to fit right in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's so interesting. And along that dream print, I remember doing that, and it's such a powerful exercise, and it took me along. And when you start to figure out, like you said, the 8 F's or what the habits that come of it, one really cool byproduct of that is that, you know, you provided me with a nice Excel tracker, and I was able to utilize that. But now, you know, when I have that through it, you know, that's up on my screen pretty much all day, every day. And one thing that was a byproduct is I thought these, you know, I put those habits in there for those areas, and I've soon realized that some habits stuck more than others, right? And what that led me to believe was, and it was 100% true, is those areas in my life, those habits weren't actually things that I wanted to really do. They may have been things that I kind of sort of thought was going to be a representation of, you know, something I wanted to do. But the ones that stuck with me, like the breath work, like the going swimming, like the taking my dog for a walk, like, you know, going on a hike X amount of times per week, or playing the guitar, or doing the things, the ones that stuck with me, and the ones that led to the bold action that I really wanted to do, and the ones that have been the most powerful on the story worth telling. Yeah.
And you bring up such a good point. This is something that my friend Brian Ford recently told me about. He is a coach around self-discipline and self-improvement. And so many people have resistance to tracking their habits, myself included. I'm like, man, I don't want to do that every single day. Am I locking myself into this rigid structure? And the way he described it to me that completely shattered the paradigm was habit tracking is just about intention and awareness. It's having the foresight to say, these are the things that I think I might want to do in order to become the best version of myself. And then when you track it, you're not tracking it to keep the chain or keep it going and never miss. You're simply noticing. You're saying, oh, that's interesting. I went 9 days in a row with meditation and breath work, and then I missed it. And then I missed another day, and then I stopped. Or, wow, I've really been consistent here. I wonder why. So it's really not to beat yourself over the head with your habits and be like, God, I broke it. It's not, it is the antithesis of 75 hard, where
Yeah.
if you mess up on day 74, they kick you back to the start. It's literally just, this is who I think I want to become. I'm going to pay attention and be curious, because what came out of Brian telling me this is that if you're not tracking anything, you're essentially saying, I'm perfect and I can't
Yeah.
learn from observing myself.
That level of awareness you just mentioned was such a fascinating byproduct and something I didn't realize. I'll take, one of the goals, again, talking about family, and I have a loving wife that I've been married close to 2 years now too. And one of the goals that I wanted to do was I love going out and eating. It's probably one of my vices. I just love trying new restaurants. And that's just something we've always wanted to do. And I noticed that if I didn't incorporate that in my weekly, I felt that there were parts of not the relationship that were suffering per se, but we weren't as on, as opposed to if that habit of we were, 2 or 3 times a week we were going and we were really intentionally taking the time to be with each other, go out and eating, decompressing after the week and doing that. Our relationship was absolute nails. It was amazing. And I didn't think that was going to be something that was just a byproduct of the awareness of doing that. And again, something that you may not have thought about unless I was just tracking it. And it's simple. Like I said, it's simple. Put in an X. I did it on Monday, and like I said, it's a powerful but simple way of going about it.
Yes. And I think it's time to talk about where you're going and what
Yeah.
you're creating. And I'm so excited for this part of the conversation because you have come alive so much in the past 6 months. And I want to ask you around the 4 pillars that you've kind of created and cultivated in your life. And then tell us what you're going to do with those 4 pillars.
Yeah, this has stemmed from one of the byproducts of us working together is one part of that I really want to do is share what I've done and educate as best as I can, taking my experience from a different point of view from others who may be wanting to learn what I'm interested in, right? And that comes down to, like we talked about, how I feel alive, for the first time in a long time, and a lot more aligned to what I want to do in my life, right? And that is really the idea of alive and aligned, right? And the 4 pillars that I'm really basing this off of is just the sound body, right? Being able to treat your body in the right way, being able to really have a high functioning body, being able to have a sound mind, being able to have the cornerstone of being on, alert, ready, focused, purpose, right? What is the purpose that you really want to do? One at a really high level, but just within your day. And one of the most important ones to me, as we've talked about, is community, right? Who are the people around you? Who are you going to be doing this with, right? And it's just material that I've been putting together, and it's been really exciting that I've been able to, kind of see the work that we've done and taken this and putting it in a medium that I'll be able to share with people that's coming soon. And my hope is that the journey that I've been on and the things that I'm insanely passionate about resonate with others, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to just share, and it's been a part of the journey that I've gone with, and it's been a big pillar of just being vulnerable and taking my felt experience and putting out what I know and love, and I've made a big impact on my life. And in those 4 pillars, sharing what worked, what habits, what hasn't worked, stories, maybe what might work for others, and just getting it out there, right? And sharing it with others, and seeing what happens.
Alive and aligned. And it's
Yeah.
going to start as a podcast, right?
Yeah. So that's the first way of doing it is going to, in a similar way, just share about what I want to do.
And then as you bring up community, we have to talk real quickly about the collective.
Yeah.
What is it and how did it come about?
Yeah, it came about. So it is a small group of individuals who really are focused on a different uh, perspective of relationship, right? And it came about really in this idea that I'm very blessed in that I have a lot of good friends, and when we get together, it can be surface level, right? It's catching up. Hey, how you doing? How's your fiance, wife, girlfriend, kids? How's the job? And that's great, but the one of the things that we've gotten together and started to work on is how I can go deeper in my relationships. And the older I get, the more I've realized is, from a friend perspective, I want to go a mile deep, right? An inch wide in the amount of friends. I'm okay having a smaller group, but I want to go deeper. That's where I really feel passionate about. And so that's the group together is how can we start to build something together? How can we start to create more? What can we do? Whether it be something from an investment perspective, whether it be something that we want to co-create together, whether it be something we want to accomplish together, like a crazy hike or a masoji or something of that nature, whether it be a breathwork retreat together. What do we want to challenge ourselves on? Be held accountable. Just a fun, light way of doing things differently, right? Because we're lucky in that we get together and do different things, but we have not yet had the opportunity to go a little bit deeper, and that's what it's about, right? Finding the collection of friends or individuals that have similar, may not be the entire group of interests, but they all want to accomplish something together. So
I think a theme of our conversation today is really taking the time to slow down, be intentional,
yeah,
and do the inconvenient, friction-filled,
yeah,
less comfortable work to connect with people, to figure out what you want in life, and then when you are with those people, to go a little bit deeper. Because it's super comfortable checking in on the surface level, but sometimes it's hard. You have to be vulnerable. You have to model it. You have to go first when you want to have these deep human connections, but that's so important.
yeah. I remember making the phone calls and being like, "This is what I'm want to do. I want to get your feedback." And I'm not a leader in the group. We're co-creating it together, but I at least wanted to be the one to push the rock down the hill and get it rolling, or analogy. And a lot of really cool stuff has happened, and I feel it's definitely shifted in our relationships and has added another level of depth. But you're right. A lot of what the journey has been is taking the first step and realizing that first step, you're going to feel alone, you're going to feel out there, you're going to feel a little bit weird, and in the hopes that others come with you, in the hopes that the community, the others that also are want to be a little bit more bold, start to come with you. It's been really cool seeing that actual manifest. Yeah.
Well, you are a leader and you are showing up with the best form of leadership, which is having the courage to go first, having the willingness to get uncomfortable, to do it publicly, to fail in front of others, and realize that there is no such thing as failure. It's just learning, whether it comes slowly across time or it comes all at once and smacks you in the face. It really is just learning and growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, to anybody who's thinking about going on the journey, that is the one thing that I constantly remind myself that it is hard, that it is growth, and that you're going to fail along the way. You're absolutely going to run into roadblocks. It's going to be hard damn work, right? And that's something we haven't touched on, is like a lot of this stuff is, you and I are sitting together. I'm silent because I'm thinking about, wait, how many times on a call have I been staring like, wait, how do I do this? Or really, what does this mean to me? And then you go back or you sit on your desk and you're sitting there like, whoa, that was harder than I thought it was going to be. Or I don't feel like I've accomplished anything, or, whatever it may be. And so as this period of growth that we talk about, it's going to be hard. But again, it's worth it when you show up every day and you're energized to do it.
And you sign up to do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I'm so excited
Yeah.
about. We're going to work
Yep.
together for another year. And I'm so freaking grateful because I've gotten so much from being in your space, your energy, your vulnerability, your curiosity. It's been so much fun. And I absolutely admire and respect all the things you're doing, Ryan. It's
Yeah.
been a blast.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, and to all those, when Greg and I started working together, it's been so interesting. We didn't talk about this, but what we started with goals in mind, and those goals were completely shifted, and we accomplished all of them. But one of the coolest things that I realized is once I did those, I've realized my identity and who I wanted to be was so completely different and shifted that there was a lot more that I wanted to do and accomplish. And I
Yeah.
remember we kind of looked at each other like, damn, we can do a lot more. And it's not just the one-time thing, right? It should kind of become this constant in your life of taking a look and reevaluating and then working and taking a look and reevaluating and working. And that is truly been one of the coolest changes I think that I've seen and has been, again, such a flame and made me feel so alive.
Yes, it is not a up and to the right
No,
growth
man.
trajectory. It is a little bit up and then down, and then you hit the loop-de-loop and you come back. And really what it is, as you continue to grow and level up, it's this upward spiral.
Yeah.
And there's lots of setbacks and
Yeah.
unexpected turns, but it really is, like you're saying, a cycle
Yeah.
of grow and learn and struggle and fail and grow and learn and struggle and fail and all the things. So
Yeah.
it's been a beautiful adventure and we're just getting started. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yep.
For the people who've been listening today and they love your energy, they want to get on the list for Alive and Aligned, where can people go to learn more about you or to connect with you?
Yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best part to connect with me. I have an email alias that I'll be setting up, and a lot of this right now is really early, but I think LinkedIn's probably the best part. But I would love to, and for those interested in what I'm doing, but also what I've done with Greg, just reach out to me. I would love to share what we've been on, because it's real. It's everything that we've talked about is real, but it's really cool to see, and I'd be happy to. It's such an amazing experience that we're just gonna keep going and keep rocking. It's been really cool.
Yeah, we're going to keep it going. I think that's so helpful. And I really
Yeah.
appreciate you offering that because it can be hard to know what it is like to actually work with a coach. And if so, if someone can talk to
Yeah.
you and pick your brain and be like, what was it like really? And, look under the hood a little bit, that'd be helpful. So
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to see who you become, the things you accomplish, all of the people you impact along the way,
Yeah.
and the story you tell with your life. So thanks for coming on the show, Ryan.
Absolutely appreciate it.
And thank you, everyone, tuning in with us today. As always, we love you guys, and we will see you next time. If you liked this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the Dare to Dream podcast on YouTube. We want to make sure you don't miss out on any of the amazing episodes we're going to be coming out with in the future. And if you liked this video specifically, please give it a like, leave a comment, let us know what you loved. Thank you so much for being here. We love you guys.